So I'll try to explain the use of this patch panel, which is for the lights here in the studio. And I will start by showing the default setup, which may be still available when you walk in, or it may be that somebody has switched everything out. An attempt is made to leave this so that it's easy to walk in and flip some switches and go. These switches here are the overheads that are just the soft China ball lights, which just generally light up the room. And for most of what you do in here, it's fine to leave those on. By default, 17 and 18 will power on the electrical switches. Now those are patched, and you'll see that there are some indicators that these are not for lights, but for electrical outlets. And if you look on the wall, you'll see that here's a switched outlet, and the number of the outlet is indicated on it, so that everything that's in it only gets power if you patch it and turn on the switch that it's patched to. Which in this case, for example, we can see number 31, we'll patch that into 18, and here's the switch that then turns on and off that receptacle. Again, this is just the default. If you're lucky and you're doing green screen, you can walk in and flip on these lights and everything will be ready to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are, if we look over, the green screen lights. So on a good day, you can just flip on all those switches and the green screen is lit and ready for use. But that's if nobody else has done anything in a while. A better thing is to understand what's happening here. And we'll start by removing these patches. All right, so we're looking at the blank patch panel now. On the patch panel, we have the lights and receptacles. Then we have the switches and the dimmers. These are the switches that activate this part of the panel. So here's 18, you flip on 18 and anything that's plugged into this will have power if this is on. And you can see that you can make 2 patches per individual switch. Over here are the dimmers themselves. And if you patch into the dimmers, you need to remember these things. First of all, that the breaker for the dimmer has to be on, and so does the master. Yeah, that's pretty dark there, but there's a master breaker here. So all is off when that is down. When it's up, everything's on. But we'll come back to the dimmer in a moment. Let's start with a basic patch. So if I wanted to turn on that receptacle, just like we were talking about before, we'll patch, we'll just start with 31 here, and we'll patch that into number 18. And now if I turn on 18, the lights that are plugged in and on in that receptacle come on. Likewise, I could add the other receptacle. By the way, I don't think I pointed this out, but there are 2 ends to the cord, the male and the female. You can see that the female end goes where the red button is, and the male end goes into the switch side. So if I put that also into 18, that one switch, number 18, turns on both of those receptacles. It's important to understand that the 2 extension cords at the back of the room are actually on these receptacles. So you'll see the 2 large icons and the 2 small ones. The 2 small ones, you'll notice their numbers correspond to the receptacles that the extension cords are plugged into. So those extension cords at the back of the room, here's how you get power to them. Let's do that now. Take another 2 cords, plug that into 33, and we'll put that on 17. And this one we'll do into the next receptacle, 35. We'll also put that on 17. And now when I flip on this switch, anything plugged into those 2 extension cords comes on. Now another thing that's important to understand is that the lights up on the grid have numbers. So I don't know, John, if you can, maybe 24 is a good one there. I see 23 and 24 are already plugged into these two boxes with the diffusion on them. Those lights can be moved around. You can also change the outlet that they're plugged into, so you'll see that there are numbers, all kinds of numbers corresponding with the patch panel. So number 22, number 18, somewhere there's a number 1. So let's say those two lights that we just looked at, 23 and 24, are the ones we want to turn on. So we come over here, we find 23, here it is. Here's 23, so I'll put one end of our patch cable in there. And in this case, let's patch that into switch number 1. So that just goes up here. I'll put it into B. And that means when I flip this switch on, that light has now come on, number 23. So there it is. Stay on that and I'll show you. Switch off, switch on. It's as simple as that. So if I wanted to repeat that for 24, it's best to plug things in with the power off, just so you know, just for safety. Plug that in. Now that one switch turns both of those on. But maybe I want to dim one of those lights. So instead of sending it to 1, let's send number 24 into the blue dimmer. So here's the blue dimmer. Patch that in so it comes from the red button to the dimmer panel. And then when I come over here to that dimmer and turn on the breaker, that dimmer now brings up and down that light. So that's how that works. You can make any patch you want. The main thing is to remember that it needs to be that the light you're trying to turn on is plugged into that receptacle. And the next thing we'll do is we'll look at bringing down the grid and moving the lights around and changing the receptacles. So now, let's talk about the lighting grid. You can raise and lower a bar on the grid. And here's the cable that's attached to that section of grid. What you need to know is this. There's what we call a dog collar here for safety. So that goes through one of the holes here on the geared part. Take that off. You actually need to put your hand on it and take some strain off of the cable. And then there's a very hard to see, down here there's a little switch. That switch, you have to pull it back. Now the whole thing is free. So there's the switch. Once it's pulled back, I'm holding the weight of the grid, which has counterbalances, so it's not heavy. It's easy to turn. And now I'm lowering the grid. I always want to either be able to see or have someone outside who can verify that I'm not about to bring the bar down on a standing light or something like that, because frequently we have floor lights out there and you don't want to crush one or knock one over. So it's a good idea to have a spotter. In this case, I can actually see the bar. Don't hit your head on it when you stand up, Gunther. All right, so now that I'm down to where I want, where I can literally just stand and work on the lights, I'm going to flip the switch back and put the dog collar back on. Now I'm free to go out and work on a light. So here is a light, which in this case happens to be attached to a 6-way. And here is the cord from that 6-way. And here is the socket with a number that corresponds to one of the red button plugs on the patch panel. And that's how we're going to make the connection. Now it could be something besides this 6-way. For example, over here is a more standard theater light. And it has the same kind of connector. These connectors, they have a key and they lock. So this is a standard theatrical connector. It only goes in one way. Once you get that way, you give it a twist, and now they're locked together and won't accidentally come apart. So the important thing to note is that, first of all, if you need to move a light, you can move the light in the standard way. Get you a wrench, take this, move it around or trade it out with a Fresnel spot or whatever you want, put diffusion on it, all of that, that's fine and dandy. But to get power to it, you need to note the number on the socket, make the connection, like in this case we'll do number 28, give it a twist, it's locked together, and now if we go make that patch, this light will come on. So I take a cord, I find number 28, the red button here with the 28, I patch in the female side of that cable, then I go find the switch that I want it to be connected to, which in this case there are quite a few we could do. Let's just do number 2 because it's easy. So here's number 2 up here, and once I patch it into that receptacle, this switch, labeled number 2, turns on that light.